Another officer, James Lucky, who arrived later on the scene, he said, "The bushes were smoldering, like somebody cut them from the top with some big flamethrower. Lonnie was white as a corpse, and he ain't exactly no pale face normally. He was sweating like a spent horse, but it was cold sweat." Journalists, state police, and the US Air Force were all quick to join the investigations. After an assessment, the Air Force claimed that none of their craft were involved, and that they had no explanation for the incidents. All witnesses at the site agreed that these marks were fresh, and that they had been made by something of impressive size and weight. But most importantly, all comers noted that Zamora looked sad, shaken, and disturbed. Whatever he had seen, it clearly had a profoundly troubling effect on him. Many newspaper readers were quick to claim that Zamora might simply have been making the whole thing up. But in official FBI reports, Zamora was described as sober, dependable, mature, and not known to engage in flights of fantasy. And these claims were quickly dampened by some of the corroborating comments made by many other witnesses. Zamora wasn't the only person who'd been affected by what happened that day, and in the days to come. Many witnesses came forward to back up Zamora's claims. Some have reported hearing the same sound as Zamora, many of them describing a loud roar, while 3 separate members of the public had called the police to describe a glowing bright object in the sky. Another witness had called the Albuquerque TV station at 5:30 p.m. on the same day, 15 minutes before the beginning of Zamora's experience. This caller claimed that they seen a UFO heading south towards the town of Socorro. Many other related incidents were reported throughout the USA in the weeks around the same time. Perhaps the period marked a flurry of alien activity. Oddly named Opel Grinder, who ran a service station in the area, offered some of the most compelling corroborating evidence in relation to the case. He reported that 2 men had entered his station just after the loud boom which Zamora had heard. They chatted with Grinder, observing that the aircraft in the area seemed to fly low. When the initially uninterested Grinder said that the men had probably just spotted a helicopter, one of the men replied, "It was a funny looking helicopter, if that's what it was."
Well, that tourist came up here and wanted gasoline. He come from the south, and he said, "Your aircraft around here flies awfully low." I said, "Well, how was that, sir?" He said, "Well, it like knocked me off the road out there." He said, "It must have been in trouble, so the policeman was going to it." So I asked him, "Was it the helicopter?" He said, "No." He said, "It was, it's a funny looking." So he went on about his affairs, and I was making up the bank deposits for the bank at 15 to 6, and that was the same time he was here. And the next morning, well, it dawned on me that the time element was the same time that the tourist was in here, that Zamora went to that object that was on the ground there. And I called the radio station, told him Zamora was not telling a lie, because the tourist seen something and didn't think much of it. And he saw the policeman also going to the object that was on the ground, which was a UFO.
These 2 Iowa residents, who'd been passing through Zamora State at the time, were identified as Larry Kratzner and Paul Kais. In 1978, the 2 men were interviewed by UFO researcher Ralph DeGraw